Hello everyone and welcome back to Painting with Martin. Today we're back with another painting video for Karak the board game. This is the expansion set that is for Karak the Regent, which is an expansion for Karak the board game, Karak 1 that is to say, because there's another Karak 2 board game that is out as well. I don't have the miniatures for that game yet, but I will in the future, and I will of course paint them for you on the channel. And this is called Hannah the Acrobat. She's quite a brittle figure, I have to say, because she's standing on one leg, and that makes her quite, I wouldn't say difficult to paint, but you really have to, you can't really rough handle the miniature, I should say, that much, because she might snap off the leg. It almost happened to me, so be careful when you're painting this one. And either you can put it on a bit of sprue, or which I'm going to do. So what you do here, I've got some blue tack and a paint bottle. I'm going to put her up here like this and attach it, and then I don't have to hold her, I can hold the bottle itself instead. If you have another old bottle or a piece of sprue or something like that, you can do that too. So this one is a fairly easy figure to paint. I'm going to show you a card art for this one, and it's this figure up here. So of course she's poised in a different position here, like striking with a spear, and she doesn't have her daggers out, which she has in the other hand. And I'm going to show you how to paint it. So let's get into it. As always, we do base paints, wash and highlights, and in this time we're going to use mostly contrast paint, so we're going to skip most of the wash stage that is. So let's get to it. I'm going to leave this one to a side. Showing it here again. So this one is the figure here. Hopefully you can see this one, and that's what I'm going to use as a kind of like inspiration for it. I'm going to try to keep it as close to the card art as I can. All right, putting this one to the side, let's start and get going. As always, I have a paint pot here, always ready with fresh water. I've got a small palette here, very simple one. You can use a wet palette if you like, but I find that it's not that, not that useful when you use contrast paints in general. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to paint her skin using Crusader skin from Army Painter, which is a speed paint. And I'm going to give it a little bit of shake, putting it down on my palette. And it is not exactly her skin tone, because her skin tone is fairly a little bit more toned, but I'm going to use this one as a base and then use another highlight for it. So putting it on her legs here. And always when you put the speed paint on, try to make sure that you don't soak up the brush with the paint, because it tends to overflow sometimes, and you want to avoid that. And going down on the other side. There's some blaring cars outside that is disturbing this workshop, but it happens as well. So those are the legs, quite easy. Now we're moving over to her upper body. So in this case, it's going to be her torso up here. Going to be a little bit more paint. Torso. And her upper, like forearms, or like biceps here. And don't cover her wrists, and we don't cover her hands because they are a different color. And attaching this one a little bit more again. Sometimes I get loose. And of course her face. Now I'm holding on to the base because it's not that stable still. I want to make sure that the eye sockets are mostly soaked with this speed paint. Not too much though. Moving down to her neck. And of course the back of the neck as well. Alright, that should be that. And looking like this. I'm going to move it up for you so you can see a little bit more. This is what it looks like. I'm going to turn around it for you as well so you can see the back sides. And here it's pooling a little bit too much, so I'm going to move around it with my brush, making sure that it has an even spread across the whole figure. Same thing here, if it's pooling too much, move it around to have an even coverage of the whole figure. I think I repeated myself there. And of course here I noticed something here on the back. That's also something that I should be covering. It's always nice to turn it around the model and make sure that you cover all the details. Now, watching my brush, moving on to the next stage. The next stage is going to be her leather skirts and top, which is going to be Snakebite leather from Citadel Colors Contrast range. Give it a good shake as well. And then we're going to cover her skirt, her gloves, and her top for this, as well as her boots as well. So we'll start with the top, and what you can do here, as always, you can angle this miniature on the side so the contrast paint doesn't flow too much as well, so it stays on the model. It can be a little bit difficult to do so. I will show you that technique in a bit, but I think I showed you a little bit. And this is a really good color if you want to paint leather effects, because it's not too strong and you can use it as a base for other effects later on. And of course the top as well. The gloves, and the gloves and a forearm guard. Don't forget the skirt and the underside of the skirt as well while you're at it. I also should take note that I have pre-primed this miniature using Vallejo's white primer. If you use that primer, which is a really good one and I highly recommend it, then I recommend that you prime them and leave it to dry for at least 12 to 24 hours in advance, letting it really set. And this make sure that the paint, no matter which paint you're using, are sticking to the plastic of the model. And then going up for the top here. And around. And making sure that I cover all the parts before moving to the shoes or sandals which you're wearing, including her armor, her leather armor from on her shins. Turning it around as I see fit. And here you can see here I'm holding it almost horizontally to make sure that the paint doesn't drip too much. And that's why it's also really useful to have it either glued or attached to some blue tack on a piece of sprue or an old paint bottle. And looking quite okay already. As you can see here, we are it's soaking a little bit too much, so I'm going to move it around, and that helps with the drying process as well. And same thing with the back. and that also makes sure it gets good even coverage. You can let it soak in the recesses if you like, which is nice. And I'm just moving it around here, making sure that everything is covered. All right, and this one's a little bit too much. So it looks like this when it's getting there, which is quite nice. The next contrast paint we're going to do is paint the spear. I'm going to put this one down, clean my brush, close the paint pot here, always important to do so. And then I'm going to show you a small neat trick. Because there's here you can see there's a tiny piece here, let's see, of old sprue. So I'm going to try to cut that away with a bit of hobby knife and trim this one away. Hopefully I won't trim away the spear. Let's see if I get this one on camera again. Yeah, so now it looks much better. Sometimes these residues or mold lines, which is what they call them, they exist on some of the figures, and we need to cut them away. Usually you do that before you paint the figure, but I've noticed it right now, so I thought I would show you that as well. So for the spear and the shaft of the spear, I'm using Citadel's colors contrast range called Wyldwood, and of course give it a good shake before you start, and then you apply it with a small brush, usually a size 1 or size 0 to give you maximum control. And as I'm showing here, I'm showing you that I'm holding the paintbrush very close to the metal part, of almost close to the bristle, because it gives me more control when I'm painting. And I suggest you do the same, compared to if you can hold it up over here, it gives you almost no control, and here it gives you much more control, just like a pencil. And here you paint the spear. It's sometimes unavoidable that you will touch the rest of the figure, and then you can adjust it later on in the highlight stage when you brush it over. And here I'm again holding this one horizontally to make sure that I don't let the paint flow too much. Turning it around, angling it to make sure I get everything covered. Okay, you can do the same thing here, the same color, for the hilts of the daggers up here. I'm turning them around as well. Only the hilts, not the sword guard, not the pommel. Pommel is the top, kind of like button-like area of the dagger or sword. Those of you who want to know that word. All right, and we can see here that it's looking quite okay already, but we have still 2 areas to cover, and that's of course the tip of the spear as well as the hair. And the hair, according to the card art, is very dark. It's going to be black, but I want not entirely black, so I'm going to give it a base coat of matte black from Army Painters series, and I'm going to just need just 1 small drop. Don't need that much more. And then again I'm going to use a larger brush for this, which is a size 4, to cover more ground. And I start from the top and move down towards the wavy flowing hair. And as I'm doing that, the figure is kind of like shaking, but it's not really going to, hopefully it's not going to deattach itself because I attached it to the blue tack. And again here, I'm angling the miniature to give me more control, and holding the base of the miniature as well to give me that extra control. Now I'm going to try to make sure, oops, drop the brush, that can happen. I'm going to slowly, not going to try to not cover the skin. And then going back on the other side, painting it with brush strokes like this, and towards the edge. And Hannah the Acrobat in Karak has a very interesting ability. When you play Karak the board game, you can pick up loot, and one of the most basic loot is a dagger. It's usually very useless towards the end of the game because you want to upgrade it with better gear, getting it from drops from monsters such as axes and better swords and stuff like that. So daggers tends to be really useless in the end, and when you pick them up, and it's like, oh, I fought this monster for nothing. So she has the ability to store her daggers on her character sheet, because normally you can only have one, and no, you can have two, but she can have up to three, which means that they tend to be better use for them even later on in the game, which is really nice. And she can also has another ability, which is to dash, and that means she has to announce it before starting her turn to everyone. So she wants to dash, and she can dash, I think it's up to 8 spaces in a single row, and that's really useful because if and that's what it looks like. She looks like if towards the end of the game you're really far out in the dungeon and someone has discovered the dragon, it will take you ages to get back to the dragon. You have no chance of winning. So she can say like, okay, great, I'm going to dash 8 spaces. She cannot dash through unexplored rooms where there are monsters, but she can dash through empty spaces, which is really useful, and especially if she wants to get from A to B without covering plenty of ground. So this is where you have it, and the final stage is I'm going to use some German grey, which is from Vallejo, to cover the tip of her spear. You could potentially just use black for this one as well. It doesn't matter that much. But you want to make sure that you start off with a darker color before you apply the silver. And you use the same color for the daggers as well. So again here, some color on the daggers. German grey, one of the best colors to use when it comes to painting metals, or pre-painting the metals, preparing them for this one. Let's switch my brush. The reason I'm switching my brush is that the bristles are not too great. I'm going to have to clean them later on. And don't forget the top of the pommel, and the back as well. And there's a little bit missing here of the spear. So looking like this, you can see there's some parts here on the spear that's still missing, but I will cover that in the highlight stage anyways. And the paint of the skirt and her leather arm is not entirely dry yet, but we are going to take the opportunity for that right now, because right now, as the rest of the paint, there's some spots here with the black that we missed happens. Before we go into the highlight stage, this is a good opportunity to actually go over the miniature and see, did you miss any spots? And I'm going to forego what I said before. I am going to actually put some color on her spear just to make sure, and then close the paint pot before I forget it. And like this, right? And also I can also see that I missed some spots for the snakebite leather, and I'm going to cover that immediately. And the top here. And the thing is, this one is looking quite okay actually already. While this one is waiting to dry entirely, you could paint the base if you prefer to do so. or you can just wait until it dries and then it's done. I'm going to try to paint the base first, and I'm going to use something called Sterling Mud from Vallejo, from Citadel. It's a very thick paint, so it's a very thick textured paint, and it gives me more opportunity to wait until it dries, and you apply it on the base. Like this. Gives me a couple of extra seconds in this video to show you also how to paint the base in a very easy way, and also while it dries, so we don't waste any time. Okay, so much nicer like this. And then you can paint the rim of the base with a German grey, which I'm going to do as well. Of course, cleaning the brush is very important. So, same thing with German grey. Putting it around here. And this is a good way of actually showing that having it on a blue tag, which I should do much more. When I shoot my videos, that you don't touch the figure itself. So it looks much cleaner, much nicer right now when it's like this. And we're ready to go into the highlight stage. And for the highlights, I'm going to start by doing the skin and giving it a warmer tone, which is important because she has a warmer tone. And that was my watch. That's telling me probably I need to stand up for a while. I'm using Cadian Fleshtone from Citadel, giving it a good shake. Kislev Flesh in this regards is a little bit too light, and I wanted to have a warmer skin tone as per the card art. And you can start by going over her thighs, and you will cover pretty much the entire miniature with this one, using the other color as a base for this. And that means it will look very similar to the leather armor, almost blending it in, giving her almost total or perfect camouflage. And there's a little bit of a hint over here that I missed. And moving over to her torso. As well as her back. And the side of the back as well. And now I have to reattach this one. That's good. You're holding it. And her arms, the other arm. It's also a good opportunity to see if you've covered the figure with some unnecessary paint. The other alternative of this is to do Cadian Fleshtone, then using Regent Flesh Shade as a wash, and then painting it over with some highlights with again with some Cadian Fleshtone and then some Kislev Flesh. And now, since this is a really beautiful figure, I'm going to keep the eyes as they are. I'm not going to paint them because I think they look really good as they are. I'm going to show you them a bit, and then forgot an area here. So this is what she looks like, which the skin is almost completely done. Okay, I think it's a beautiful figure. Now, we can turn our, because the leather arm is not entirely dry yet, we're going to turn our attention straight to, see here, the hair is almost done. You can check that with your fingers, see if it's dry, and then attaching this one again, make sure it doesn't move. Before we go to the leather armor, we're going to go to the metal parts, and for the metal parts I'm using something called Chainmail Silver from Vallejo. You could potentially use natural steel if you want less of a shining color. That's also an option. You only need a few drops for this one, and that's why it's coming in handy using a wet palette so the paint stays. And then we're going to use it. I'm going to show a tutorial for that, how to use wet palette, in another video. At the same time, I want to say thank you to all of you who have subscribed to the channel. If you haven't subscribed already, I would like you to do so. That would be great if you do so. And tip of the spear just for you to show it. Thank you if you consider doing that, because it really helps my channel grow and show people that it's quite easy to paint. Pommel of the daggers. If you like this video, please consider giving it a like and a share. And leave a comment if you see what you like. Was a bit too much there, but it's okay. You can also do the sword guard here as well. So that's for the metal part. If you you can actually finish this model right now. You can leave it as it is. But if you want to go for a little bit further and do a little bit of a different highlight, I'm going to show you a few more nicer things. So, cleaning my brush, and then we are going to use a color called XV88. Give it a good shake. To find the XV88 again. It's not with me. Let's see, where are my XV88? If you can't find your XV88, like I can't here because I'm completely disorganized, you could potentially use either some red leather from Vallejo. It's quite a reddish tone. I want it slightly different, and let's see here. I can give it another go of finding the red leather from the XV88. See, I did find it. XV88 from Citadel, and the good thing here is you can use it to dry brush, and that means you're going to need a very small dry brush. This one might be a little bit too big, but to dry brush it over the leather part could give it the nice tonal variation that I'm looking for, and to blend in the colors. So I'm going to give it a go. Gives it kind of more of a brownish look, as well as for the boots. On the back, you have to be careful with this one because it's quite a brittle figure. Shin guards. The base can be a little bit more firm with it. But there is a few smaller details that I like using when I'm painting, and like look at the details, and that's where we're going to come in right now and do that. I'm going to use a fine tip brush to cover her the studs on her armor. Which are these, as well as her belt buckle. Turning around and see there are more studs. And it's these kind of details that kind of like really make a figure stand out on the board, and I highly recommend to look for them. Looking like this. And then I'm going to put another highlight on the hair, which I talked about before, and that is to give it a light dry brush using German grey from Vallejo, because it gives more of a different tone on her hair and not pure black. So I'm going to hold the miniature firmly while doing that. Holding it with one hand even here to stabilize it. And it gives me an opportunity to paint her braids in a different tone. I have to hold her leg over here just to make sure, so you can see how brittle it might be when you actually do that. Because you don't want to snap it off after all your hard work. So it's hard to see on the camera that the figure gets this small treatment, but it's nice. Also see here I missed a little bit part of the Cadian Fleshtone. So I'm going to fix that immediately, making sure that it's all good and clear. I'll do that on the back here as well, on the back of her neck, and some other parts here that I realized were not up to quality that I like. Here as well is another small spot. There you go, and also another one over here. All right, I'm coming down to the final details of this figure, and that is to paint the tip of the spear with a small, not the tip of the spear, with the spear shaft with another small color, small tonal variation. And for this one, I'm going to use a color called Thondia Brown from Vallejo. No, sorry, from Citadel. Thondia Brown from Citadel. My apologies again. And I'm only going to cover the spear that gets the most sunlight. So the tip of the spear over here and down over here. I do not cover the back because it doesn't get any sunlight, and I want it to be remaining darker. Okay, so I'm going to put this one down, and I'm going to show you how the figure looks as it's ready. So this is Hannah the Acrobat from Karak the board game expansion set, the Karak the Regent. Highly recommend you the game. I also want to say a big thank you to the board game company Albi, who gave me this set so I could show you so I can show you guys how to paint it. Thank you very much, Albi. I look forward to seeing you in Essen Spiel this year again. And if you don't know what Essen Spiel is, Essen Spiel is the largest board game convention in the world, set in Essen from the 3rd to the 6th of October this year. I highly recommend you should go to take a look at this one, and even if you don't like board games and you just paint miniatures, there's going to be tons of fun for you guys. So I'm going to put this one down over here. I'm going to put this one, so you can see which board game it is from. And I'm going to put this one down, unscrew it, and this is what it is. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time. And again, thank you so much to all of you who have who have subscribed to my channel. Please consider subscribing again. It helps me grow this channel. Thanks for watching.